E36 BMW M3, produced in the United States from 1995 through 1999, is one of the signature cars in the history of BMW and probably the single most important product line in my entire career, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But first, we're going to pop the hood and take a look at what makes the E36 M3 such a dynamite sports car. Now, the E36 platform came out in 1992 in the United States, from 1992 to 1999. Every single year it was sold in the United States, that platform, the E36 BMW 3 Series, was on Car and Driver's 10 best cars in the world list. It's just an absolutely dynamite piece of engineering, and to a lot of people's thinking, it's the high point of engineering in the history of BMW. You take that amazing car and turn it into a high-performance M3, and you have a recipe for something particularly outstanding. One of the things that made the car so great was the engine, the M50 engine, which came out in 1991 in the 525i. It was an inline six-cylinder engine that was liquid smooth in a way engines just weren't ever until that point. It was the single best engineered, best performance for the money, best whatever it is that you want to describe it, six-cylinder engine in the world for many, many years. That M50 engine turns into the S50 engine in 1995 in the BMW M3. It's the reduced horsepower, the S50 B30 US-Spec version, which is 240 horsepower, 225 pound-feet of torque. This 1999, and in fact every M3 from 96 to 99, jumps up from a 3-liter inline 6 to a 3.2-liter inline 6. However, horsepower stays the same at 240 horsepower and a red line of right around 7,000 RPM. Right here, all BMWs of these early generations, and to this day almost all BMWs are going to have this sticker right here that says in German what the color of the car is, with so many different kinds of silvers and grays and what have you. This one, titanium silver, and so you'll see pretty much all of them are Blau, which is blue, and Schwarz, which is black, and Silber, which is silver, and so it's pretty easy to determine what actual color this is, translating it from German to English. Another thing, I want you to look at this particular car, because this particular car is a really special car. It's a 1999 and it only has 82,000 miles. It's owned by Sean Urbanski, who is the head service manager here at BMW of Hawaii. It's his personal car, and believe it or not, despite the super duper low miles, it's actually his daily driver. If I look up here on the fenders, you're going to see the original VIN sticker to this car. I can go around from the fenders to the hood, and then as we look around throughout the car, you're going to realize every VIN sticker on the car as it was new is still there. So this is a completely original, super duper low mile 1999 cream puff, the absolute holy grail for people looking at E36 platforms, especially E36 M3s. Let's take a look around. This is a standard package. Back in the day, we used to call this a sports package. In fact, you're going to see that term used a lot if you're looking at E36 M3s. There is no such thing as a sports package. That's just what we called it. There's a sports package and a luxury package, or a base model and one with a bunch of extras. The luxury package has a 5-spoke wheel, where this standard model has a much more elaborate wheel. We called it the Sport because we wanted to make it a little bit more distinct between the performance edginess of the interior of the M3 Standard versus the more squishy soft version of the luxury, which we called the Comfort. But whatever you get, the wheels are exactly the same 40 series profile tires. These have nice expensive Michelin tires on them. It's just a really cool car. The suspension, sometimes you'll see that, well, maybe the Sport version has a little bit different suspension than the luxury package. That isn't true. They're actually exactly the same. The differences come in the rocker panels, some of the front fascia type of stuff, and then the interior. But other than that, they're exactly the same car. Let's pop inside. So we used to love calling these seats sport seats, but they're called in today's marketplace Vader seats, the kind of reminiscent of Darth Vader. They're a little bit more serious, futuristic looking interior. The comfort package, or the luxury package, has the same interior for the most part of the 328 IS Sport model. And so it's a softer, squishier, less bolstered type of seat. And then you'll notice that it would have leather on the door and wood in the center console area. But when you pop inside of it, at 6 feet tall, 180 pounds, I'm all kinds of comfortable. And the wheelbase is quite long on these for the day. It's 106.7 inches, and so it gives it a lot of space. Even though I'm really comfortable in the front, you can actually get pretty decently comfortable in the back as well. The brakes on the M3 are absolutely physics altering for their day. This stops from 70 miles an hour to 0 miles an hour in 158 feet. To put that in perspective, if you saw the video I published last week of the 2020 M850 xDrive $120,000 car, this stops in almost exactly the same distance as that 21-year newer $100,000 more expensive car does, with the most cutting-edge technology in the world. It's easy to see why people were such fans of the M3 from 95 to 99, because not only is it super smooth, it goes 0 to 60 according to Car and Driver in 5.6 seconds. Again, extremely fast for its day. But to be able to brake so powerfully, so quickly, was like nothing else that was sold in the 1990s. Because the M3 shares its architecture with all the 3 Series cars, it actually has a really reasonable trunk. For a high-performance sports coupe, it is actually very easy to go to Costco or do all the things that you need to do. It also has split fold-down rear seats, so if you need the extra space, it's actually extremely practical. Now, a lot of things make the M3 a big deal. The basic suspension, it's a McPherson strut front suspension with a multi-link rear end, is very simple, very predictable, and has excellent tracking out on the road. Doesn't wander, doesn't drift, isn't really affected by crosswinds or anything like that. It also soaks up bumps very beautifully, and that's a big thing. Back in the 1990s, sports cars did not soak up bumps all that well, where the M3 did. But we're going to find out by taking it out on the road and finding out for ourselves. One of the criticisms that you'll read in today's world about the M3 from this E36 generation is that the European model had 42 more horsepower than the United States model did. It didn't have that B30 US version of the S50 and S52 engines. However, the acceleration numbers between the two are actually extremely similar, and the reason is that the 240 horsepower engine US-Spec car had a broader and lower torque line than the European car did. The European car was designed more for top speed, where the US car was designed more for real-world US type of driving. You can get it either with a 5-speed manual or a ZF 5 HP, 5-speed automatic transmission, which was actually a great transmission for its day, the way the 8 HP is today. That transmission, that automatic transmission, was actually perfect for the S50 engine and was stout enough where the horsepower did not have to go down at all, despite the automatic transmission. The one negative on the automatic is that the weight is 66 pounds heavier than the 5-speed manual. The gearing is a little bit different between the two. It's 323 gears with limited slip differential in the automatic and 315 gears in the manual. As a result, despite the extra weight, the automatic transmission gets about 23.5 or thereabouts average real-world combined fuel economy, which is actually a tiny bit better than the manual. And so, as you can see, not only is 0 to 60 done in no time at all, 0 to 80 is done in no time at all. And again, even though this car is 21 years old, it's just rock solid. No squat, no inconsistencies, doesn't feel like, uh-oh, you're driving it too hard and it's gonna break. No, nothing like that at all. I get it that this car is in unusually immaculate condition, but all M3s, if they've been serviced well, are great cars for the long haul, especially if you like to drive them hard. Turn in. So these 1990s M3s handle at just a click under 0.9 Gs of lateral acceleration. So that'd be pretty average for a sports car in today's world, although it was superb from 1995 to 1999. But one thing about these cars is they just stay so flat that even if you do take a turn at reckless speeds, all you're going to do is drift, and even if you break traction, you still have an element of control that's very exciting. Now this does have traction control so that it does challenge you if you want to drift. However, with the push of a button down here, that feature goes away and you can drift to your heart's delight, which is kind of what this car was made for. I count myself as very, very lucky. The 3 Series from 1992 to 1999, the E36 3 Series, was the single most successful product I've ever carried in my entire life. When I managed Frontline in Bellevue, Washington for years, our entire business model was built around the E36 BMW 3 Series. About 40% of the cars that we bought and sold were cars from this platform. And so if you look at the sum total of cars we sold over the years, that means I've bought and sold over 1,000 E36 cars. So for a guy like me as a manager, you don't make so much money every time a car is sold, but even if you make a couple of $100 times 1,000 cars, that's a lot of money towards my own personal bottom line. And so I'm heavily invested in knowing a lot about the E36 platform in general. I've also been lucky enough to drive one all the way from the Czech-Polish border, across the Danube, all the way to Stuttgart and beyond to Paris in one of the most thrilling drives that I've ever been on in my entire life, top speed all the way. But as cool as that is, nothing is as cool as driving them here in Hawaii. Hawaii is the most beautiful place in the entire world. And to have such an amazing car like a low mile M3 E36 like this one is, this is about the coolest, funnest thing that you could ever have in a place like Hawaii. It's reasonably fast even by today's standards, unbelievably fast by 1990 standards. It has fabulous brakes. That's a big deal in an environment like ours where it could be hot 1 second and pouring down rain 3 seconds later. It handles like nobody's business. We have some of the best driving roads in the world here, especially on the big island in Hawaii, where you can have the entire island to yourself and go 100 miles an hour and no one's going to be the wiser because you're not going to pass anybody along the way. And it does it in a way that's practical and super duper safe and super duper predictable. Roads can be very uneven here. It soaks up the bumps, no big deal. It's big enough where you can bring your friends and all of your gear. This one has a Harman Kardon stereo system. It's just got it all. This particular car, a 1999 with only 80,000 miles, this is an absolute holy grail car for a place like the big island of Hawaii. But whatever E36 M3 or any E36 platform car catches your eye, just know you're getting about the single best engineered vehicle in the history of BMW. I wanted to show you that not only does Sean Urbanski, the service manager, have an E36 M3, David Ducaveras, the general manager of the dealership, also has. His is a 1998 E36 M3. His is all tricked out. It's got lightweight wheels and Dynon everything, and they're putting a whole new brake system and every other system on it while it's here today. And so that's a big deal. And you might wonder, like, why do I care what the people at the dealership drive? Let me tell you something. Whenever you do business with anybody, not just people in the car business, but it's easy to understand in the car business, any business where the most important people there are fully invested in the classic history and tradition of the product that they sell, you know they're totally invested in the brand, in the car, and in you and what's going on in your life. And you know they know all about not only their own car, but your car too. And if you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. My name's Joe Tunney. You can reach me at joeloveshawaii@gmail.com.